So hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and today I want to check out the Rakta Dagger, which is a new radiation-based dagger that you can get if you're the rank of Exalted with the Red Veil Syndicate, and it costs a whopping 125,000 standing. Now, unlike the primary or the secondary Syndicate weapons, the melee Syndicate weapons don't have a Syndicate proc. Instead, each one of the melee weapons has a unique mechanic that was suggested by the community. And the one DE chose for the Rakta Dagger is that if you hit an enemy that has radiation on them, it will take 5% of the damage done to the enemy, and it will give it to you as shields and overshields. And additionally, if you're in full melee mode with the Rakta Dagger, you can get closer to enemies before they notice you, so it reduces your visibility by a little bit. And unfortunately, both of these bonuses sound much cooler than they really are. And personally, I would not recommend focusing on these bonuses because I didn't really like this weapon until I started ignoring them. Now, even if we ignore the Syndicate bonuses, the Rakta Dagger is still an upgrade over the original Dagger. It does higher base damage of 50 radiation damage versus the original's 35. It has faster attack speed of 1 versus the original's 0.967. That is a very weird number. And it has a V polarity, whereas the original Dagger didn't have any polarities. The critical chance is still only 5%, the multiplier is below average of 150%, and it has 10% status chance. Now once again, I have a budget and a big boy build, let's just call them, and they are both 0 forma. So for the budget build, we're going to start off by adding Homing Fang. This is my preferred stance for the daggers because it has a really good button mash combo, and that's kind of the most important thing about daggers, because if you add a little bit of attack speed, pulling off the combos is really hard, and since Homing Fang has a really good combo that gives you a lot of mobility, it is the preferred stance for me. Then to add a little bit of damage, we're going to add Pressure Point. Then to supplement Covert Lethality, we're going to run Finishing Touch, and this is actually a pretty good and cheap supplement for Covert Lethality. It's also very easy to get because it drops some Corrupted Butchers and Lancers, so all you have to do if you don't have it is run Void for a little bit, and it's really going to help you finish off those big beefy units like Bombards. Then we have Fury to add a little bit of attack speed, and this just helps the dagger overall. It means you do more DPS if you're just swinging the thing, and it also speeds up the finisher animation. And then we're going to add Gleaming Blight, which is an augment for the daggers that you can get from the Red Veil Syndicate if you're the rank of Revered or higher and costs 25,000 standing. And we're using this augment just to get the Blight effect. The status chance may look really nice, I mean plus 100% status chance is really nice, but in reality all it does is just add 10% raw status chance, nothing more, nothing less. The Blight effect on the other hand is really cool because once you get enough affinity while wielding the dagger in full melee mode, it will do an explosion dealing 1000 viral damage to all enemies around you, proc viral on them, which will cut their health in half, and it will restore 25% of your base energy and temporarily increase your movement speed by 10%. And finally, we're going to add 4 dual stat mods, and they're always the same for all the factions, so Voltaic Strike and Virulent Scourge for corrosive damage, and Volcanic Edge and Vicious Frost for blast damage. And this is a very deadly combination because we have Radiation from the Rakta Dagger, we have Corrosive and Blast from the dual stat mod, and we have Viral from the Gleaming Blight. And the cool thing here is that you have a lot of mod capacity left, so if you don't have all of these dual stat mods, you can sacrifice a little bit of status chance and replace them with a 90% elemental mod instead. Now let's check out the build that I actually use on the Rakta Dagger. So we're once again going to start off by adding the Homing Fang stance, which is my preferred stance as I've said already. We're going to add Primed Pressure Point for a lot more damage, and we're going to add Covert Lethality. Now Covert Lethality is awesome because if you can get a finisher off on an enemy, it will one-shot them regardless of their health, armor or shield, but it also adds 100 raw melee damage to your normal melee swing, so it actually makes the weapon hit harder even if you're not using finishers. Then we're going to add the primed version of the Fury mod, which gives us a lot more attack speed, and Gleaming Blight once again. And just like we did with the budget build, we're going to add Voltaic Strike and Virulent Scourge for corrosive damage, and Voltaic Strike with Vicious Frost for blast damage. Now this setup is not designed for warframes that do finishers from stealth, so Loki, Ivara or Ashe. This is designed for warframes like Excalibur that can open the enemies up to finishers. And that's because A, it has the Radial Blast from Blight, and B, it has Radiation, and Radiation is probably the worst thing you can proc on the enemy if you're trying to stealth kill them and you fail. I've done plenty of stealth endless runs where I've died as a consequence of me proccing Radiation on an enemy that was too close to me. Now, as I said earlier, I didn't really enjoy this weapon until I started ignoring the unique effect where if you hit an enemy that has a Radiation proc on them, you will gain shields. And that's because, well, to get a decent amount of shields from the enemy, you can't do a lot of damage. So I was knowingly reducing the damage this weapon does so that I can proc radiation on the enemy and then hit them a couple of times to get some overshields. And after a while, I realized how dumb that actually was, so I slapped on this build instead, and out of nowhere, I was suddenly having loads of fun. And I've realized how dumb the bonuses are and how they contradict each other, because the first one is a stealth-themed bonus where the enemies have to be closer to you to see you, and the second one encourages you to hit the enemies, get radiation on them, and then hit them again, which just doesn't make sense. And I think it would make more sense if the enemies would have to be closer to you, as it is right now, but you got the shield bonus if you got a finisher off on an enemy. Wouldn't that make more sense for a dagger? And I know you can combine it with Broberon and use a Reckoning to get radiation on the enemies, but it just, I don't know, it just doesn't fit very well with the dagger in my opinion. So I would definitely not recommend focusing on the bonuses, and I would instead use the build that I'm using, which basically turns the weapon into a status monster. Because I love what this build can do. It has the utility of a status build. I mean, you can confuse the enemies with radiation, you can strip away their armor with corrosive damage, knock them on their Rs with blast damage, and once you get enough affinity, you will cut their health in half with the viral proc, and at the same time, if you're using a Warframe that can reliably open the enemies up for a finisher, you can one-shot anything regardless of their health, armor, or shields. So the weapon overall is good, and I really like it, but the bonuses just don't make sense to me, unfortunately. I mean, yeah, sometimes you will get a little bit of shields because you will hit the enemy twice and the first hit will apply radiation and the second one will siphon a little bit of shields, but that's about it for that one. And if you're running endless missions, the second bonus, where the enemies have to be closer to you to see you, is completely useless because in endless missions, the alarms are active from the very start. So overall, a good weapon that I would still recommend, but only if you want to build a quad status monster build. Anything else, I would not really recommend it, because the only thing that matters for covert lethality is attack speed, and Ceramic Dagger, which is a much cheaper dagger, has the same attack speed as the Rakta dagger, so it's basically just as good. And that's pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching, as always, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.